What you are about to hear is a work of fiction. The people, places, and events depicted in this story are products of the author's imagination or used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual individuals, living or deceased, or to real situations is purely coincidental. These stories may explore themes of crime, injustice, and human suffering. While fictional, they reflect real emotions and difficult truths that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm not crazy and I'm not confused. Someone is stealing my life, piece by piece, and if we don't stop her soon, there won't be anything left of me to save. These words would echo through the quiet suburban home where Rebecca Thompson was fighting the most important battle of her life, a battle she didn't even know she was in. Before we go on, consider subscribing to the channel to be notified as new stories are published. Please let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know just how far our stories reach. 3 months had passed since the accident that changed everything for 41-year-old Becca Thompson. The rainy Tuesday evening, when a distracted driver ran a red light, had left her with a broken leg, 3 cracked ribs, and a mild traumatic brain injury that made her thoughts feel like they were swimming through fog. The physical wounds were healing, but the invisible ones, the memory lapses, the difficulty concentrating, the way words sometimes escaped her just when she needed them most, those were proving more stubborn. Her home had become both sanctuary and prison. The 2-story colonial in Maplewood Heights, where she'd lived since her divorce 2 years ago, now featured a hospital bed in the living room, a walker by the kitchen counter, and pill organizers that her 16-year-old daughter Emma refilled with the precision of a pharmacist. "Mom, your physical therapist is here," Emma called from the front door on a crisp October morning. Becca looked up from her laptop, where she'd been struggling to focus on a marketing proposal for nearly an hour. The words kept rearranging themselves on the screen, a frustrating reminder of how much the accident had changed her. Vanessa Cole entered with her usual radiant smile, carrying a leather bag filled with resistance bands, exercise balls, and what seemed like endless optimism. At 35, she possessed the kind of effortless beauty that made people trust her instantly. Auburn hair that caught the light just so, green eyes that seemed to genuinely care, and a voice that could make even the most painful exercises sound like gentle suggestions. "How are we feeling today, Becca?" Vanessa asked, setting down her bag with practiced efficiency. She always said "we" as if they were partners in this journey, which Becca found oddly comforting. "Better," Becca replied, closing her laptop. "The headaches aren't as frequent, and I actually remembered where I put my reading glasses this morning." "That's wonderful progress," Vanessa said, pulling on latex gloves. "Dr. Hayes was right when she said your recovery would accelerate with the right support system." "Speaking of which, how did the password changes go? I know we discussed updating your email security after that spam incident." Becca frowned slightly. She couldn't quite remember the spam incident Vanessa was referring to, but then again, there were many things from the past few months that felt hazy. "I think I changed them. Emma helped me." "Perfect. And you updated your social media passwords too, right? We want to make sure your accounts are secure while you're focusing on recovery. There are so many predators out there who target people in vulnerable situations." Emma, who had been quietly organizing her school books in the kitchen, looked up at this comment. Something about the way Vanessa emphasized vulnerable situations made her stomach tighten, though she couldn't articulate why. The therapy session proceeded normally. Gentle stretches to improve Becca's range of motion, balance exercises to rebuild her confidence, and strengthening routines for her still healing leg. Vanessa moved through the routine with professional grace, offering encouragement and adjusting Becca's form with gentle touches. "You know," Vanessa said as she helped Becca through a series of arm stretches, "I've been thinking about what we discussed last week, about reconnecting with David." Emma's head snapped up from her textbook. She didn't remember her mother mentioning any conversation about her father. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that," Becca said carefully. "The divorce was difficult, and with everything I'm dealing with now." Sometimes healing requires us to heal old wounds too, Vanessa said softly. Emma needs stability, and children do better when their parents can co-parent effectively. I've seen it in my other clients. Family reconciliation can be incredibly therapeutic. Becca touched the delicate silver bracelet on her wrist absently. The small charms caught the afternoon sunlight streaming through the living room windows. Maybe you're right. After Vanessa left, Emma approached her mother with a casual tone that masked her growing unease. "Mom, where did you get that bracelet? I don't remember seeing it before." Becca looked down at her wrist, her expression puzzled. "This? I'm not sure. I think someone gave it to me, but I can't remember who. Probably Janet. You know how she's always bringing me little gifts to cheer me up." But Emma knew Janet well, and the bracelet wasn't her style at all. Janet preferred bold statement jewelry, not delicate silver chains with tiny charms. Emma made a mental note to ask Janet about it the next time she visited. Over the following weeks, Emma began noticing other small changes. Her mother's Facebook posts, which had always been warm but brief, suddenly became lengthy and overly cheerful, filled with inspirational quotes and updates about her amazing recovery journey. The language didn't sound like her mother at all. "Mom, did you really post this thing about embracing life's challenges with a grateful heart?" Emma asked one evening, showing Becca her phone. Becca squinted at the screen, looking genuinely confused. "I don't remember posting that, but Vanessa said it was important to maintain a positive online presence during recovery. Maybe I did it and forgot." The memory issues provided a convenient explanation for everything, and Emma watched her mother use them like a shield against her own confusion. But Emma had lived with her mother's post-accident limitations for months now. Becca might forget where she put her keys or lose track of a conversation mid-sentence, but her fundamental personality hadn't changed. The woman writing those Facebook posts felt like a stranger. Emma started paying closer attention during Vanessa's visits. She noticed how the therapist always arrived early and let herself in with the spare key she'd convinced Becca to give her for emergency access. She watched how Vanessa moved through their home with increasing familiarity, commenting on family photos, and asking detailed questions about Becca's past, her work, her relationships. "You know, Becca, I love what you've done with this place," Vanessa said during one session, running her hand along the mantelpiece where family photos were displayed. "This picture of you and Emma at the beach, you both look so happy. And this one of you at your college graduation, you've barely aged a day." Emma found these comments odd. Vanessa had been coming to their house for weeks. Why was she just now noticing these things? The breakthrough came on a Thursday afternoon when Emma decided to skip her last period study hall and come home early. She had a calculus test the next day and wanted to study in the quiet house while her mother napped between client calls. She used her key to enter through the back door, planning to surprise her mother, but stopped short when she heard movement in the living room. Vanessa wasn't scheduled to come until Friday, and Emma's mother should have been on a video conference with a client in Chicago. Emma crept quietly through the kitchen and peered around the corner into the living room. What she saw made her blood run cold. Vanessa was standing in front of the large mirror above the fireplace, but she wasn't preparing for a therapy session. She was wearing one of Becca's cardigans, the soft blue one that Emma had given her mother for Christmas. Vanessa was studying herself in the mirror, tilting her head the way Becca did when she was thinking, practicing the slight smile that appeared when Becca was listening to someone speak. "That sounds wonderful, David," Vanessa said to her reflection, her voice carrying the slight rasp that Becca had developed since the accident. "I think it's time we talked about our future." Emma pressed herself against the wall, her heart hammering so loudly she was sure Vanessa would hear it. She watched in horror as Vanessa moved to Becca's desk and began photographing documents with her phone, insurance papers, bank statements, medical records. The woman who was supposed to be helping her mother heal was systematically documenting every detail of her life. Emma remained frozen until she heard Vanessa moving toward the kitchen. She slipped out the back door and ran to the neighbor's house, her mind racing. Mrs. Patterson, an elderly widow who had become an unofficial grandmother to Emma, welcomed her with concern. What's wrong, dear? You look like you've seen a ghost. I think someone is trying to steal my mother's life, Emma said, and even as she spoke the words, she knew how crazy they sounded. That evening, Emma tried to discuss her concerns with her mother, but Becca was having one of her foggy days. The conversation went in circles, with Becca defending Vanessa and expressing hurt that Emma would think such terrible things about someone who was only trying to help. "Sweetheart, I know this has been hard on you," Becca said, reaching for Emma's hand. "Taking care of me, watching me struggle, it's not fair that you've had to grow up so fast. Maybe you're seeing problems where there aren't any because you're stressed." Emma felt tears of frustration building. "Mom, please just listen to me. Something isn't right about Vanessa. The way she talks about our family, the questions she asks, the way she what? Helps me? Encourages me? Emma, Vanessa has been nothing but professional and kind. Dr. Hayes recommended her specifically because of her experience with brain injury patients." That night, Emma lay awake formulating a plan. If the adults in her life wouldn't listen to her suspicions, she would have to gather proof they couldn't ignore. The next morning, while her mother was sleeping in, Emma called Janet Morrison, her mother's best friend and former colleague. "Janet, it's Emma. Can I ask you something about Mom?" "Of course, honey. How is she doing? I've been meaning to visit, but she keeps saying she needs rest." "That's actually what I wanted to ask about. When was the last time you saw her in person?" There was a pause. "Well, I saw her last week at Starbucks on Main Street. She seemed much better, more like her old self. We talked about her getting back into dating, actually. She seemed excited about reconnecting with your father." Emma's stomach dropped. "Janet, Mom wasn't at Starbucks last week. She's barely left the house except for doctor appointments, and she definitely didn't talk about dating Dad." "Emma, sweetie, I think you're confused. I spent 20 minutes with her. We talked about her therapy progress, her work. She even mentioned that new bracelet she was wearing, said it was a gift from someone special." After Emma hung up, she sat in her mother's home office, staring at the wall of diplomas and awards that represented Becca Thompson's successful marketing consultancy. Someone was out there, using her mother's name, wearing her mother's jewelry, and having conversations about her mother's future. Someone who knew enough details about their lives to fool even Janet, who had known Becca for over a decade. Emma made a decision that would have seemed impossible just months ago, when she was still a carefree teenager worried about normal things like chemistry tests and prom dates. She was going to catch a predator. The first step was documentation. Emma began keeping a detailed log of every strange occurrence, every inconsistency, every moment when her mother seemed confused about something she should remember. She noted the dates and times of Vanessa's visits, comparing them to her mother's scheduled appointments and the mysterious sightings of Becca around town. Next, she needed technology on her side. Using money from her part-time job at the local bookstore, Emma purchased a small wireless camera designed for home security. She spent hours researching the best placement, the optimal angles, and how to access the footage remotely from her phone. The camera went live on a Tuesday morning, hidden among the decorative items on the bookshelf that faced the living room. Emma tested it throughout the day, making sure she could access the feed from school and that the audio quality was clear enough to capture conversations. On Wednesday, Emma's patience was rewarded. She was sitting in advanced placement history, ostensibly taking notes on the Industrial Revolution, when her phone buzzed with a motion alert from the camera. According to her mother's schedule, Becca should have been alone, working on a client presentation. Emma opened the app and watched her worst fears unfold in real time. Vanessa was in their living room, and she wasn't there for physical therapy. She was methodically going through Becca's purse, photographing credit cards, and examining her driver's license. But what made Emma's breath catch was what Vanessa did next. She moved to the full-length mirror by the front door and began a transformation that was both fascinating and terrifying. Vanessa pulled her hair back in the loose bun that Becca favored, applied lipstick in a shade that matched what her mother wore, and practiced facial expressions. She spent several minutes perfecting Becca's slightly lopsided smile, the one that appeared when she was being self-deprecating. "Hi, David," Vanessa said to the mirror, her voice now carrying Becca's post-accident vocal patterns. "I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe it is time for us to try again. For Emma's sake." Emma felt sick. Someone was rehearsing conversations with her father while wearing her mother's identity like a costume. The video evidence was compelling, but Emma knew she needed more. That afternoon, she made a decision that terrified her. She was going to follow Vanessa after her next scheduled visit. Friday's therapy session felt surreal. Emma sat at the kitchen table, pretending to do homework while watching Vanessa guide her mother through exercises. Every professional smile, every encouraging word, every gentle touch now felt sinister. Vanessa wasn't helping her mother heal. She was studying her, learning her, preparing to replace her. "I think we should increase your sessions to 4 times a week," Vanessa told Becca as she packed up her equipment. "You're making such good progress, but consistency is key. And I'd like to schedule them during Emma's school hours so you can focus completely on your recovery without worrying about her." Emma's pen snapped in her grip. Vanessa was trying to eliminate the one person who might witness her activities. "That sounds reasonable," Becca agreed. "Emma has been so worried about me. Maybe some space would be good for both of us." After Vanessa left, Emma told her mother she was going to the library to work on a research project. Instead, she followed Vanessa's silver Honda Civic through the tree-lined streets of Maplewood Heights and into the commercial district of downtown. Vanessa's first stop was a medical supply store where she spent 20 minutes browsing equipment that had nothing to do with physical therapy. Emma watched through the window as Vanessa examined items that looked more suited to long-term medical care, hospital beds, oxygen equipment, adult diapers. The second stop made Emma's blood run cold. Vanessa parked outside Riverside Coffee, the small cafe where Emma's father often grabbed his morning espresso before court appearances. Emma positioned herself behind a newspaper stand and watched as Vanessa entered the cafe with confidence, approaching a familiar figure at a corner table. David Thompson looked up with surprise and pleasure as the woman he believed to be his ex-wife approached his table. Even from a distance, Emma could see Vanessa's transformation was complete. She moved with Becca's slight limp, wore Becca's favorite autumn jacket, and had styled her hair to match the length and color of Becca's recent cut. Emma's father stood to greet the woman he thought was Becca, pulling out a chair with the gallant gesture he'd always made for his ex-wife. Emma watched in horror as Vanessa smiled with her mother's expressions, gestured with her mother's hand movements, and leaned forward with her mother's attentive listening posture. The conversation lasted 45 minutes. Emma saw her father's face transform from surprise to confusion to what looked like hope. She watched him reach across the table to touch Vanessa's hand, saw Vanessa respond with the shy smile that had once been uniquely her mother's bling. When the meeting ended, David and Vanessa embraced. Not the awkward hug of divorced parents forced together by circumstances, but the tentative embrace of two people considering a second chance. Emma's father walked away with a lighter step, clearly believing he'd just had a breakthrough conversation with the mother of his child. Vanessa watched him go, then pulled out her phone and began typing rapidly, probably documenting every detail of the interaction. That evening, Emma confronted her mother with desperate urgency. "Mom, did you meet Dad for coffee today?" Becca looked genuinely puzzled. "What?" "No, honey, I've been home all day. Why?" "He thinks he met with you. Someone who looked like you, talked like you, knew things about our family." Becca's confusion deepened. "That's impossible. Emma, are you feeling all right? You've been acting strangely lately, and now you're saying someone is pretending to be me?" The conversation deteriorated quickly. Becca, already struggling with memory issues and self-doubt, began questioning her own perceptions. Maybe she had agreed to meet David and forgotten. Maybe her brain injury was worse than she thought. Maybe she was losing herself in ways the doctors hadn't anticipated. Emma realized that Vanessa's greatest weapon wasn't just her ability to impersonate her mother, it was her mother's own uncertainty about her condition. Every strange occurrence could be explained away by the convenient excuse of brain injury-related memory loss. That night, Emma made a decision that would change everything. She couldn't fight this battle alone, and she couldn't rely on adults who were already being manipulated. She needed professional help from someone who understood both her mother's condition and the legal implications of what was happening. The next morning, Emma called Dr. Patricia Hayes, her mother's neurologist. "Dr. Hayes, this is Emma Thompson, Becca's daughter. I need to ask you something important about Mom's condition." "Of course, Emma. Is your mother experiencing new symptoms?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out. Would Mom's brain injury affect her personality? Would it make her forget basic things about herself, like her preferences or her way of speaking?" Dr. Hayes was quiet for a moment. "Emma, traumatic brain injuries affect people differently, but the kind of injury your mother sustained typically wouldn't cause personality changes or alter fundamental aspects of her identity. She might have memory gaps and concentration issues, but her core self should remain intact. Why are you asking?" Emma took a deep breath and told Dr. Hayes everything. The strange social media posts, the mysterious bracelet, the sightings of her mother around town when Becca was home, the footage of Vanessa in their house, the coffee meeting with her father. Dr. Hayes listened without interruption, her medical training evident in her systematic questions. "Emma, what you're describing sounds like someone is systematically assuming your mother's identity. This isn't about brain injury. This is about criminal behavior. Have you contacted the police?" "I tried talking to Officer Caldwell when he came to check on Mom last week. He said it sounded like teenage stress and that I should talk to a counselor." "Would you be willing to show me the video evidence you mentioned? And would your mother consent to a comprehensive neurological evaluation to document her current cognitive state?" Emma felt hope bloom in her chest for the first time in weeks. Yes to both. Dr. Hayes arrived at the Thompson house that afternoon with a briefcase full of assessment tools and a tablet for reviewing Emma's evidence. Becca, confused but cooperative, agreed to the evaluation after Dr. Hayes explained it as a routine follow-up to track her recovery progress. While Dr. Hayes put Becca through a series of cognitive tests in the living room, Emma showed her the camera footage on her laptop in the kitchen. They watched together as Vanessa practiced being Becca, photographed documents, and tried on clothing. "This is identity theft," Dr. Hayes said quietly, "and abuse of a vulnerable adult. Emma, your mother's test results confirm what I suspected. Her cognitive function is actually better than we expected for this stage of recovery. The personality changes you've been noticing aren't symptoms of brain injury. Someone has been manipulating her." Dr. Hayes made 2 phone calls that afternoon. The first was to Detective Michelle Torres in the department's fraud division, bypassing Officer Caldwell entirely. The second was to David Thompson. "Mr. Thompson, this is Dr. Hayes, your ex, wife's neurologist. I need to ask you about a meeting you had with Becca earlier this week." Emma listened as Dr. Hayes carefully extracted details about David's coffee meeting, asking specific questions about conversation topics, Becca's appearance, and her behavior. By the end of the call, David's voice had changed from confusion to alarm. "Doctor, are you saying that wasn't really Becca?" "I'm saying we need to meet as soon as possible. Your daughter has uncovered evidence of a serious crime, and we need your help to stop it." The plan that emerged from their emergency meeting was elegant in its simplicity. They would use Vanessa's own confidence against her by creating a scenario where she would reveal herself completely. David would text Becca's phone, asking to meet for dinner to discuss their future. They were counting on Vanessa intercepting the message and responding as Becca, accepting the invitation. Meanwhile, the real Becca would be safely at Dr. Hayes' office for an extended consultation, with Dr. Hayes prepared to serve as a witness to Becca's whereabouts. Emma would be at the restaurant with a tablet, live streaming the dinner to Detective Torres and Dr. Hayes. When Vanessa appeared claiming to be Becca, they would have her caught in the act of identity theft with multiple witnesses. The text was sent Tuesday evening. Becca, I've been thinking about our conversation. Would you like to have dinner Friday at Osteria Marco? We could talk about trying again, for Emma's sake. The response came within an hour. That sounds wonderful, David. I've been hoping we could work things out. See you at 7. Emma stared at the message on her mother's phone. The woman upstairs, currently watching Netflix and eating ice cream, had no knowledge of this dinner plan. Someone else was making appointments using her identity, planning a future that would erase the real Becca Thompson entirely. Friday evening arrived with unseasonable warmth for late October. Emma positioned herself at Osteria Marco's bar, nursing a Coke and keeping her tablet angled to capture the dining room. Dr. Hayes and Detective Torres were in an unmarked car outside, monitoring the live stream and waiting for the signal. David arrived at 7 sharp, wearing the navy suit that had always been Becca's favorite. He looked nervous but hopeful, checking his watch and smoothing his tie. Emma felt a pang of sympathy for her father, who genuinely believed he was about to have dinner with his ex-wife. At 7:15, Vanessa Cole walked into the restaurant with the confidence of a woman who belonged there. She had transformed herself so completely that Emma barely recognized the physical therapist she'd been watching for months. Vanessa wore Becca's favorite black dress, the one she'd bought for her first post-divorce job interview. Her hair was styled exactly like Becca's, and she moved with the slight favoring of her left leg that Becca had developed since the accident. "David," Vanessa said, approaching the table with Becca's warm smile, "you look wonderful." Emma watched her father stand and embrace the imposter, his face lighting up with an emotion that made Emma's heart ache. This wasn't just identity theft, it was emotional manipulation on the cruelest level. "You look beautiful," David said, pulling out Vanessa's chair. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I almost didn't," Vanessa replied, her voice carrying Becca's post-accident vocal patterns perfectly. "This hasn't been easy for me, David. The accident changed so much, and I wasn't sure I was ready to trust again." Emma typed a message to Detective Torres. "She's here. It's definitely not my mother." The dinner proceeded with devastating authenticity. Vanessa ordered Becca's favorite wine, laughed at David's jokes with Becca's particular sense of humor, and discussed Emma's college plans with intimate knowledge of her daughter's dreams and fears. "I think Emma is more ready for independence than we realized," Vanessa said, cutting her salmon with Becca's left-handed grip. "She's been taking such good care of me, but I worry we're holding her back. Maybe it would be good for her if we were together again." David reached across the table to touch Vanessa's hand. "I've missed this. I've missed us." "The divorce was a mistake, Becca. I was so focused on my career that I forgot what really mattered." Emma felt tears burning her eyes as she watched her father pour his heart out to a woman who was systematically destroying their family. Vanessa responded with exactly the right mix of vulnerability and hope, accepting David's apology with Becca's gracious forgiveness and expressing tentative interest in reconciliation. "There's something I need to tell you," Vanessa said as dessert arrived. "I've been making some changes to get my life back on track. New passwords, updated accounts, simplifying my business operations. I want a fresh start." "That sounds healthy," David said. "Are you ready to include me in that fresh start?" "I think I am," Vanessa replied, her voice soft with feigned emotion. "But I'll need help. The brain injury has affected my ability to handle complex decisions. I might need you to take a more active role in managing things." Emma's blood ran cold. Vanessa wasn't just stealing her mother's identity, she was positioning herself to gain control over Becca's finances, her business, her entire life. At 8:30, Emma sent the agreed-upon signal, "Now." Detective Torres entered the restaurant with 2 uniformed officers, approaching the table with professional calm. "Excuse me, miss, I need to see some identification." Vanessa looked up with surprise, but not panic. She had prepared for this possibility. "Of course, officer. Is there a problem?" She reached into her purse and produced Becca's driver's license with steady hands. Detective Torres examined the ID carefully. "This says Rebecca Thompson. Is that you?" "Yes, it is," Vanessa replied with Becca's slight confusion. I'm having dinner with my ex-husband. Has something happened? I'm afraid there's been a report of identity theft involving Rebecca Thompson. I'm going to need you to come with me for questioning. David started to protest. Officer, there must be some mistake. This is my ex-wife, the mother of my daughter. Actually, sir, it isn't, Emma said, approaching the table with her tablet still recording. Mom is at Dr. Hayes' office right now, 20 minutes away from here. She has no idea this dinner was planned. Vanessa's composure cracked for just a moment, a flash of calculation crossing her features before she regained Becca's confused expression. Emma, sweetheart, what are you talking about? I spoke with Dr. Hayes earlier. She said it was fine for me to have dinner with your father. Then you won't mind calling her to confirm, Detective Torres said, holding out her phone. The game ended when Vanessa realized she couldn't maintain the deception any longer. Faced with the impossibility of calling Dr. Hayes while claiming to be at dinner, she made a desperate choice. David, don't let them do this, she said, reaching for his hand with trembling fingers. I know this looks confusing, but I can explain everything. My brain injury has made things so complicated. Sometimes I don't remember making plans or having conversations. But David was staring at her with growing horror, comparing the woman at the table to years of memories of his real ex-wife. The resemblance was remarkable, but now that he was looking for differences, they were everywhere. The way she held her fork, the slight accent that wasn't quite right, the mannerisms that were almost but not entirely Becca's. You're not her, he whispered. Oh God, you're not Becca. Vanessa Cole's carefully constructed performance collapsed entirely. You don't understand, she said, her voice now carrying her own desperate tone instead of Becca's measured cadence. She wasn't using her life properly. After the accident, she was just wasting away, hiding in that house, not appreciating what she had. I could have been her better than she was being herself. The confession continued as Detective Torres read Vanessa her rights. In her desperation, Vanessa revealed the full scope of her plan, how she had been slowly documenting every aspect of Becca's life, practicing her mannerisms, building relationships with her friends and family, preparing to eventually have Becca declared incompetent and assume complete control of her identity. I've done this before, Vanessa said with chilling matter-of-factness. There are so many people who don't appreciate their lives, who waste their opportunities. I give meaning to those lives. The investigation that followed revealed the true horror of Vanessa Cole's crimes. She had been systematically targeting vulnerable clients for 3 years, using her position as a physical therapist to access their homes, study their lives, and gradually assume their identities. 2 previous victims had been elderly clients with dementia who had been moved to care facilities while Vanessa took over their homes and finances. Another had been a young mother recovering from a stroke who had been declared mentally incompetent and institutionalized while Vanessa lived her life. Becca Thompson had been intended as Vanessa's most ambitious project yet, a successful businesswoman with valuable connections, a teenager who could provide legitimacy to the stolen identity, and an ex-husband who could be manipulated into providing both financial support and social credibility. The criminal charges were extensive: identity theft, fraud, abuse of vulnerable adults, stalking, and conspiracy. Vanessa's physical therapy license was immediately revoked, and her professional references were revealed to be fabricated. The recommendation from Dr. Hayes had been forged, part of an elaborate setup to gain access to Becca's life. For Becca Thompson, the revelation was initially devastating. Learning that someone had been systematically studying and impersonating her while she was at her most vulnerable felt like a violation that went beyond criminal behavior into something deeply personal and horrifying. I keep thinking about all the times she touched me during therapy, Becca told Dr. Hayes during a follow-up session. She was learning my body language, studying how I moved, memorizing my gestures. It feels like she stole pieces of my soul. But as the investigation progressed and more of Vanessa's scheme was revealed, Becca began to find strength in an unexpected source: her own resilience. The brain injury that had made her vulnerable to Vanessa's manipulation had also made her more appreciative of genuine connection and love. "Emma saved my life," Becca said during Vanessa's sentencing hearing. "Not just from this woman's crimes, but from the isolation and self-doubt that made me an easy target. My daughter saw what I couldn't see and fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself." Emma's testimony at the trial was particularly powerful. The 16-year-old who had started this ordeal, feeling helpless and unheard, spoke with clarity and strength about the importance of trusting intuition and protecting vulnerable family members. "I learned that sometimes being a good daughter means questioning the adults around you," Emma told the court. "Sometimes protecting someone you love means being willing to seem crazy or paranoid. My mom taught me to be brave, and I hope I taught her that she's worth fighting for." The trial also revealed the depth of David Thompson's remorse. His testimony about being deceived by Vanessa was painful but necessary, and his commitment to rebuilding his relationship with his family became evident through his actions rather than just his words. "I failed to protect my daughter and my ex-wife," David said during his victim impact statement. "I was so grateful that someone who seemed like Becca was willing to give me a second chance that I didn't question whether it was really her. I'll never forgive myself for being so easily manipulated, but I'm grateful that Emma had the courage I lacked." Vanessa Cole was sentenced to 12 years in prison, with requirements for restitution to all her victims and mandatory psychological evaluation. Her other victims, emboldened by Becca and Emma's courage, came forward to share their own stories of violation and recovery. 6 months after Vanessa's arrest, the Thompson family gathered for Emma's 18th birthday celebration. The living room that had once been a therapy space filled with deception was now decorated with balloons and filled with genuine laughter. Becca had made a remarkable recovery, both physically and emotionally. Her cognitive function had returned to near normal levels, and Dr. Hayes attributed part of the improvement to the resolution of the chronic stress caused by Vanessa's manipulation. "It turns out that constantly fighting against someone trying to erase your identity is exhausting," Becca explained to Janet, who had become one of her strongest supporters after learning about the deception. "My brain was working overtime, trying to maintain my sense of self while being told I was confused and unreliable." David had kept his promise to be more present in their lives, but the process of rebuilding trust was gradual and realistic. He attended family therapy sessions, respected boundaries, and slowly earned back the right to be included in important decisions. "We're not getting back together," Becca clarified to well-meaning friends who hoped the crisis might reunite the family romantically. "But we're learning to be better co-parents and friends. What happened taught us all that family isn't about perfect relationships, it's about showing up for each other when it matters." Emma had been accepted to 3 universities with full scholarships, her college essay about protecting her mother earning recognition for its honesty and insight. But perhaps more importantly, she had developed a confidence and maturity that would serve her well beyond academics. "I used to think being a teenager meant I couldn't really help with adult problems," Emma reflected during a television interview about identity theft awareness. "But I learned that sometimes young people see things differently because we haven't learned to doubt our instincts yet. Trust your gut, even when adults tell you you're wrong." The final scene of this long ordeal took place on a quiet Sunday morning in spring. Becca sat in her home office, working on a marketing campaign for a nonprofit that helped abuse victims, while Emma packed boxes for college in the fall. The house felt safe again, filled with the easy comfort of a family that had survived something terrible together. On the mantelpiece where Vanessa had once practiced stealing Becca's expressions, a new photograph now sat in the place of honor. It showed Becca and Emma together at Emma's high school graduation, both beaming with genuine joy and pride. Below the photo, in a simple silver frame, was a handwritten note that Emma had given her mother on the day Vanessa was sentenced. "To Mom, my real life, protected by real love. Thank you for teaching me that family means never giving up on each other, even when the world tries to tell us we're wrong. You are irreplaceable, and I will always fight for you. Love, Emma." David knocked on the front door that morning, arriving for their weekly family brunch, a tradition they had started as part of their healing process. He no longer had a key to the house, but he no longer needed one. He was welcomed as a friend and co-parent, not as someone trying to reclaim a role he had forfeited. "How's the college prep going?" he asked Emma as she carried another box down the stairs. "Scary and exciting," Emma replied honestly. "I keep thinking about leaving Mom, but she keeps reminding me that protecting someone doesn't mean never letting them be independent." Becca emerged from her office, her laptop balanced in one hand and a coffee mug in the other. She moved with confidence now, the hesitant, uncertain woman that Vanessa had tried to exploit, replaced by someone who had rediscovered her own strength. "I've been thinking," Becca said, settling into her favorite chair, the one where she used to do physical therapy exercises, "about starting a support group for people who've experienced identity theft or abuse by caregivers. Dr. Hayes thinks it could help other victims feel less isolated." "That sounds like you," David said with a smile that held no romantic undertones, just genuine admiration for the woman he had once married and still respected. "Always wanting to turn your pain into something that helps other people." Emma looked up from her packing. "I think that's a great idea, Mom. You could probably help a lot of people who are going through what we went through." "What we went through," Becca repeated thoughtfully. "I like that you say we. For so long, I felt like I was the only victim, like my weakness had put our whole family at risk. But really, Vanessa attacked all of us. She tried to steal your father from you by manipulating him, tried to isolate you from me, and tried to erase me entirely." The conversation was interrupted by a phone call from Detective Torres, who had become not just an investigator, but a friend to the Thompson family. She was calling with news about Vanessa's case. "Another victim came forward," Detective Torres reported, "a man in Oregon whose mother was one of Vanessa's previous targets. Apparently, she's been operating under different names for over 5 years. The FBI is taking over the case to investigate her activities across state lines." After Becca hung up, the family sat in contemplative silence. The scope of Vanessa's crimes continued to expand, revealing a predator who had destroyed multiple families with her systematic approach to identity theft. "It makes me angry," Emma said finally. "Not just what she did to us, but thinking about all those other families who went through this. How many people didn't figure it out in time?" "That's why what your mother wants to do is so important," David said. "Vanessa succeeded for so long because people didn't know this kind of crime existed. She exploited our assumptions about trust and caregiving." Becca nodded, her expression determined. "I've been researching while working on this nonprofit campaign. Identity theft by caregivers is more common than people realize, especially targeting people with disabilities, the elderly, and anyone in a vulnerable situation. The victims often feel too ashamed to report it, or they're not believed when they try. Like how Officer Caldwell didn't believe me at first," Emma added. "If Dr. Hayes hadn't taken me seriously, who knows how far Vanessa would have gotten." The morning passed peacefully, with the kind of easy family conversation that had been impossible during the months when Vanessa was infiltrating their lives. They made plans for Emma's going-away party, discussed Becca's business expansion, and talked about David's new commitment to pro bono work, helping abuse victims navigate the legal system. As David prepared to leave, he paused at the front door. "Becca, I want you to know that I'm proud of how you've handled all of this. The way you've rebuilt your confidence, supported Emma, and now want to help other people. It reminds me of why I fell in love with you in the first place." Becca smiled, but it was the smile of a woman who no longer needed external validation to know her worth. "Thank you, David. That means a lot. But I think the most important thing I've learned is that I don't need anyone else to validate my identity. Vanessa tried to steal my life because she thought it was better than hers, but she never understood that the real value wasn't in the external things, the house, the business, the relationships. It was in the love Emma and I have for each other and the strength we found together." That afternoon, Emma found her mother in the backyard, tending to the garden they had planted together during Becca's recovery. The physical therapy exercises had evolved into a shared hobby, with both of them finding peace in the routine of nurturing growing things. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Emma said, kneeling beside the tomato plants they had started from seeds. "Always." "Are you scared for me to leave for college? After everything that happened, I worry about leaving you alone." Becca sat back on her heels, considering the question carefully. "I'm scared," she admitted, "but not for the reasons you might think. I'm not scared of being alone or vulnerable again. Vanessa taught me that I'm stronger than I knew, and what happened made me more aware, not less capable." "Then what are you scared of?" "I'm scared that what we went through might make you feel like you always have to take care of other people, like you can't trust anyone else to do it right. I'm scared that being my protector might have taught you that your job is to sacrifice your own dreams to keep other people safe." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. In all the months since Vanessa's arrest, she hadn't considered that her mother might be worried about her. "I want you to go to college and be young and make mistakes and trust people, even though some of them might disappoint you," Becca continued. "I want you to learn that loving someone doesn't mean you have to save them from everything. You saved me from Vanessa, but the most important thing you did was show me that I was worth saving. That's not a job you have to do for the rest of your life." "But what if something happens and I'm not here?" "Then I'll handle it," Becca said with quiet confidence, "and if I can't handle it alone, I'll ask for help from people I trust. Dr. Hayes, Detective Torres, your father, Janet, we have a good support system now. But mostly, I'll remember what you taught me, that my instincts are worth trusting, that my life has value, and that real love doesn't try to erase who you are." As summer turned to fall, the Thompson family's story became a catalyst for broader change. Becca's support group grew into a non-profit organization that provided resources for victims of caregiver abuse and identity theft. Emma's college essay was published in a national magazine, raising awareness about the warning signs of predatory behavior targeting vulnerable individuals. Detective Torres used their case as a training example for other law enforcement officers, emphasizing the importance of taking seriously reports from family members who notice concerning changes in their loved one's behavior or circumstances. Dr. Hayes incorporated lessons from Becca's case into her practice, developing new protocols for monitoring patients' social and emotional well-being alongside their physical recovery. Even David's law firm established a pro bono program specifically designed to help families navigate the complex legal challenges that arise from identity theft and elder abuse cases. The ripple effects of one teenager's determination to protect her mother had created a network of awareness and support that would help other families avoid or survive similar ordeals. On the day before Emma left for college, she and Becca took a final walk through their neighborhood, the same streets where Vanessa had once stalked them, photographed their routines, and planned her deception. Now those streets felt safe again, reclaimed by the ordinary rhythms of family life. "I have something for you," Becca said as they reached the park where Emma used to play as a child. She pulled a small, wrapped box from her pocket. Inside was a silver necklace with a simple pendant engraved with both their initials. "It's not to replace the bracelet Vanessa gave me," Becca explained. "It's to remind us both that our connection doesn't depend on objects or gestures, or even being in the same place. It's built into who we are." Emma fastened the necklace around her neck, feeling the weight of it settle against her heart. "I love you, Mom, and I'm proud of who you've become." "I'm proud of who you've always been," Becca replied. "My brave, brilliant daughter who saw danger when adults missed it, who fought for truth when everyone doubted her, who saved her mother's life by refusing to give up." They walked home together as the sun set over Maplewood Heights, two women who had faced the worst kind of betrayal and emerged stronger, more connected, and more certain of their own worth. The house that had once been a stage for Vanessa's deception was now simply home again, a place where Becca Thompson could be herself without fear, where Emma Thompson could prepare for her future with confidence, and where a family had learned that love isn't just about protecting each other from harm, but about helping each other remember who they really are when the world tries to convince them otherwise. In her final journal entry before leaving for college, Emma wrote, "I used to think that growing up meant learning to see the world as a dangerous place. But what I really learned is that growing up means trusting yourself enough to recognize both the dangers and the good things, and being brave enough to fight for what matters. My mom taught me that identity isn't something that can be stolen, it's something you choose to claim every day by being true to who you are and protecting the people you love." As autumn deepened and Emma settled into her new life at university, she carried with her the knowledge that she had helped save more than just her mother's identity. She had helped save her mother's faith in herself, her father's capacity for genuine love, and her own belief that even when the world seems full of people who want to take advantage of kindness, there are always more people ready to fight for what's right. The substitute life that Vanessa Cole had tried to create was gone, revealed for the hollow imitation it had always been. In its place remained something far more valuable. A real life lived by real people who had learned to trust their instincts, protect their love, and never underestimate the power of a family that refuses to give up on each other. And in the living room, where Vanessa had once practiced being someone else, Becca Thompson sat each morning with her coffee and her laptop, building a business that helped other people tell their own authentic stories, because she had learned, through the worst possible circumstances, that nothing in the world is more powerful than refusing to let someone else define who you are. The bracelet Vanessa had given her was long gone, turned over to police as evidence. But the silver necklace from Emma rested always against Becca's heart, a reminder that real love doesn't try to change you. It helps you remember who you've always been and gives you the courage to be that person even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. Some stories end with justice, some end with healing. This one ended with both, and with the quiet triumph of a family that had learned the difference between a life that's stolen and a life that's truly lived. Thank you for listening until the end. If you enjoyed the story, please consider leaving us a like. This helps us reach more people.